all the earbuds. We have Stacy. Welcome. I'm so
Thank you
excited.
so much. I'm excited too.
Yes. And so the first time you came on that show, that is a podcast as well, you talked about the story behind your business and how you went from, I don't know, like there are so many things, from New York, Broadway, to the mutual funds company, to a book, a blue thing in your back here. I don't know if you can see on Instagram and on Facebook, LinkedIn, we can see the blue thing behind you on your left shoulder. It's called Promotions Made Easy. And I know it was a big, big dream of yours. And I was lucky enough to be kind of a witness of the first time I heard you say in one of the mastermind we were part that you had that dream to write a book, and then you said, I'm going to do it, and you did it, and now it's everywhere.
That's amazing. This is so fun. And on Instagram, you can see my book on my earrings.
Oh my God, is it? Oh
yes, there's my book. Yes, actually, my client, who I talk about in the introduction of my book, she sent me these. I just got them in the mail today. I'm never taking them off.
Oh my God, this is so cool. Oh my God, that's awesome. So before we dive into questions I have for you, let us know, who is your audience online? Who do you talk to every day, and whose life do you impact?
Awesome. Well, Angelique, I am so thrilled to be back here. I think it's been about a year since I came on your show, and it really is really cool. No pun intended, to bookend, the year, and to think about all that's happened and all that I didn't plan for in a good way, right? Like, it's like, yes, I had the book, but it's in mind, but in reality is a totally different thing. So super exciting. So my handle on Instagram is Corporate Badass, which actually is basically who my audience is. So I work with corporate women to get them promoted into senior executive leadership positions. So these are basically kind of badass women who are working really hard, head down, doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing, and getting passed over for promotions. And so my work is to help them get into those higher level positions so that we can hashtag show me the money, hashtag no kudos, thank you, and really get paid for our ideas instead of the hours that we work.
Well, that's a big plan. And something I want to say before I forget, or before we get too excited by, the interview itself, is that the way you hear Stacy talking to me here is exactly the way you're gonna read the book, if you read the book. Or if you get it for someone, who is in that position, who is like trying to get to the top or go through the ladder, but for the maybe not the right tactics, and you have the right tactics and strategies and mindset in your book. And the very reason, if you may be asking, why do we talk about corporate women on Social Media Love Show? Because first, I told you, because you are a friend, and I'm excited to be sharing that excitement with you. But also, when I was reading the book, and I didn't read every page, I went by section. I'm like, I'm gonna sit down and read like page by page, because most of the things you share are applicable to anything you want in life, basically.
Yeah.
And
one of the things is success leaves clues, right? And when we start to model our behavior off of successful people, no matter what it is, whether it's an executive leader that we admire, or an entrepreneur, a CEO, a badass like you, Angelique, right? It's there's clues. What's got you here? And so,
yeah. And so for me, at Social Media Love, it's all about becoming visible and loving the fear of becoming visible to get what you want, to get your clients, to move forward your mission and everything. But what I read in the book is like how to become visible to yourself as a leader in your own corporation, and to the eyes of the people who are going to help you get where you want to go.
Right.
But this is how I read it. So I don't know if many people told you the way that I hope I don't switch anything, but for me, it talked to me so much. Plus, I still have a full-time job in a corporate world. So for me, it speaks so much. And maybe why I have my business now is if I had read your book like 10 years ago, maybe I would have get that fulfillment that I now get in my business in a corporate world. So that's all the thing that came up when I read the book.
Yeah. And, women who come into my executive ahead of time program, a lot of them, when we start 3Xing your vision, which is like chapter 3 or 4
Yes.
in the book, when we start thinking about where we want to be, basically by the time that we retire, they sometimes realize it's starting their own business, right? Like they will go into consulting or entrepreneurship, but if they can do the work on themselves to, like you said, be more visible, put themselves out there at their company, now they're already 5 steps ahead once they do start their business, because we all know that there's a bit of a transition here, which I learned as well.
Guacamole. Transition everywhere, right? Everything requires lots of guacamole.
Lots of guacamole. Yes, and that always keeps it fresh.
Okay, Stacy, and I want to make you listeners and watchers or viewers, I should say, speaking my French here. It's a dream of many people to write a book. Mm-hmm. And to make it happen, you got to be like burning somewhere before you make it happen, right? So tell me more about that. I know it's kind of still fresh for you. So
yeah, November 30th, it just came out.
Yeah. How many days you say?
Less than a month.
Yeah. So it's super fresh, like guacamole. So what was your most burning desire, Stacy, before starting to write the first page or say, this is it, I'm going to write my book?
Well, okay. So we have to go back in time, right? So everything starts with a vision. So, I remember I traveled through India actually after I left my corporate role. And we talked about this on the Real Story Behind Your Business earlier this year. When I left my corporate role, I bought a one-way ticket to India, and I traveled around with an iPad and a little portable keyboard. And I wrote every single day that I was in India. I knew that I was going to write a book, and, it was going to be basically this memoir of these travels, maybe the next Eat, Pray, Love, like whatever that might be for me. And I loved the process of writing and exploring. And then I came back and actually, instead of writing a book, I ended up meeting my husband and sort of taking a little bit of a different journey, a different path, so to speak. But that idea that I was going to write a book, that idea which is like, this is what 2022 is going to bring, which is that I want to be on stage. I want to be a public speaker. I want to be talking about this work. I've had all of those dreams for 20 years, right? So when, we put the vision out there, and then we sort of start to work on the how we're going to do it. And the how was like, oh, I have a clue. I know I'm going to do it now, right? I'm going to go to India. And so that's going to be my how. Oh, no, I'm going to write about my children. Okay, that'll be my how. Oh, wait, I'm going to be a yoga teacher. Oh, that'll be my how, right? So it's like I start to figure it out. But really, the goal was always the same, was that I wanted to write a book. And really, honestly, I didn't just want to write a book for myself. I wanted to impact lives, right? That's why I want to be a speaker. That's why I want to do this work. It's like, yes, it's fun, but it's not that much fun unless you're actually helping and inspiring and motivating others. Like that's how I personally feel. And so then you ask the question, how did it actually come into fruition this year? And the truth was, it sounds a little bit cliche, but it wrote itself. So I, had the dream, had the vision, and then I kept getting told that I should just write this book. Like it's already written. That's what people kept telling me. It's already written. And I was like, I don't really know what that means. It's already written because I have no book written. And really this came to a moment with my husband where he was like, really, I think 2021 is your year to write the book. You need to write the book. And he's like, it's already written. And he's like, the 18th person who's told me this. And I was like, well, if it was already written, I would have written it, you know? And he was like, wait a minute, let's talk. And so we actually, you know, we sat down. He was like, what's going on? Because it really is already written, you know? And I was like, and so then that's where the fear comes in, right? That's where, when you ask me that question, how did the book get written? It started with the decision to write the book. That was it. Everything else before going to India, all of that was a dream of writing a book. In that moment, when he said, let's talk, the only thing standing in my way was fear. And Angelique, you and I are in other mastermind groups together where we talk a lot about dancing with our fear. And really, instead of being like, oh, I shouldn't do that when you see fear, it's more like a process of leaning into it. And so, and luckily, he was willing to sit with me and equally lean into the fear and say, okay, what's it going to take to get this book written? And I looked at him in that moment and said, I'm writing the book. And he's like, okay. And what I had to do was carve time. And so I said, I'm going to give myself 4 months to write this book. And what I did is, instead of calling it writing a book, I actually shifted my language to collecting. And I literally went to all the places that the 18 other people had told me where the book was already written. You know, anywhere from in the back of my head to my podcast episodes, to my program that I had already created that has full transcripts. And I collected these pieces and turned them into this book. And but it really started with the decision to go from a dream to writing the book, to just doing it and carving the space and committing to that and making it happen. And I did. Done. The book is done. I wrote the book.
So tell me, you're a mom, you're a full-time business owner with lots of, clients you serve every day. How do you commit? What's the magic pill here?
So I had a program. And so for the entrepreneurs listening, as I know there are many of them, that, you have a launch schedule, you have your 2021 schedule and all of the different things that you're going to do. And so I had a series of programs mapped out for 2021, a series of webinars, marketing schedule, all of these ideas of what I was going to do. And I said, the book is the most important thing that can happen right now. And so I canceled my launch that was supposed to start the next week. And I asked myself again, like stepping into the fear, because I was like, when I said I could cancel the launch, like tears started coming down my face. And I was like, okay, what's going on here? Like what's happening? And the only thing I could come up with was, again, I'm afraid if I cancel the launch, then I'll lose momentum on my business, because it's like, I had people, they hadn't bought yet because I hadn't launched it, but they were like ready to buy, they send you the emails. So like, I'm joining your program in March and I'm going to sign up and all of these things. And, I was actually I got some amazing coaching from our mentor, Tracy. And I said to her, I was like, I am very afraid, but the only thing I can come up with is to not do this is fear of losing momentum. And I was like, I teach how to 3X your vision. When you 3X your vision, you're going so far in the future. You're not worried about losing momentum on this one launch. That's not how we work at that level. Like, come on, And so I got real with myself and I said, you know what? These clients, they may or may not sign up when I come back in August. I'm not sure, but you know what I'm doing? I'm writing the book. And I wrote the book, and I would say 50-50 of them are in my programs now. And the other 50% may or may not have even joined back then. Who knows, right? We don't know, or they'll come later. Who knows? It doesn't matter anymore, Yeah.
Wow. I love your energy. And so in the what was the favorite time of the day, or did you have did you have a routine? What was the thing that came up for you that was the time of day you had to do this?
Well, I put it in my calendar. I had 2-hour chunks of book collecting. I had to do 2 hours. Like I couldn't do 30 minutes. It kind of seemed like I had to, ramp up to it or whatever to be able to kind of get going. And so I always do. You asked me about my children and my home life and all of those things. And one thing that I tried really hard to do, especially I think probably before the pandemic as well, is my work hours are my work hours. And I make those very sacred. So I wrote the book during my work hours, right? And if I was launching a program and running a program at the same time of writing my book, I would have had to write my book at nighttime. And I think that wouldn't have been as fruitful. It also would have been more stressful, right? It literally, like, the process of getting this book out into the world was so easy that the hardest part was that one day looking at my fear, and that probably lasted about 20 minutes because I have all of these amazing tools to, with writing and journaling and getting my thoughts out and really looking at my mind in a way that I was able to process it and work through it. And then everything else has just been all uphill. It's like that flow state where you're just like, oh my gosh, I think I know this was meant to be, because it really was so easy.
You were in the zone for 4 months.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Actually, I finished the book in 3, and then I had an extra month to be like, well, what do I do now? I had all this time because my next launch for my program still was another month away. And so I was like, oh my gosh.
Oh, wow.
So much extra space.
That's so awesome. So what did you want to accomplish with that book? Because to have that such of a drive, I know it was a dream, and then it was about promotions made easy. Out of all the topics it could have been about, what is it that really was behind the accomplishment you wanted to get there?
Well, originally it was, so I said there's like the vision of, wanting to write a book, change people's lives, all of these things. And over the last 5 years, I've been doing that by helping corporate women get promoted, right? And so I needed to write the book as a process to give them this tool to help them get promoted. And the original decision from a marketing standpoint was just like, oh, it's another asset. It's another way to reach people who I've never even met. And it's also a really great way to be interviewed, to be engaging, because I find that sometimes, and because I have my own podcast as well. And so if I receive a request from somebody who wants to be interviewed or an article to be written about them, and they're a coach, which is wonderful and amazing, but they're coming onto my podcast to promote their business, is very different than coming onto my podcast to promote their book. I'm like, hello, bring it on. We'll promote your book all day. So there's something of this magic of books that allows that from a marketing perspective to just really kind of explode, right? And so much more opportunities to come up as a result of having a book. So that was the idea behind it, was to use it not to sell 10,000 copies, but more so to give me those opportunities to get on other media outlets.
Awesome. So tell me, what was the first big payoff? Like, I know it's been 30 days, but what is the thing that came out and you're like, yeah, that's it?
So we make these decisions logically for our business because we want to get more media outlets so I can grow my business, right? But and so that seems like it makes a lot of sense. But the payoffs were not that, right? I mean, they will be, and they are, right? Like, I actually, I've had people like you, and I think you said at the top of this, you're like, you've been at so many podcasts and so many interviews, and it does feel that way. But the biggest reward has been, and this is so cool. So when I first started my business, somebody suggested to me, because it's like a solo entrepreneur, one person, to use in my marketing the word we instead of I, I coach women, we coach women, right? And so that never, I had trouble doing it because it was like, it's just me. I'm like sitting in this office and like, we doesn't even make sense. The royal we, and I'm like, it's just me. What the book did, I changed my language from I now to we again. But what it is this book has created a we. And so what I mean by that is the we is not my big giant team that I have working in my business. The we is all the women that are getting promoted and the companies and the lives they are changing. And so these women who I've been coaching for years are now spreading the book. They're talking about why it matters to have them in the C-suite. They're talking about what we could change if we had more women in the C-suite, and they're sharing it with their colleagues. Again, because it's so easy to share a book. It's, and then this book is this process that they have experienced to work. So they're like, this is exactly, so many women have said, I read the book and I felt like you were just telling my story the entire time, because it's the journey that we've been on together. I wrote the book from what I did with my clients. That's the step-by-step process to the executive suite. And so, so that movement into we is like, I'll never be able to go back. That's it. I'm now a we again, but for a totally different reason than when I started my business, right? It's like, no, we are a we. I almost can't say I anymore. We're doing this.
Yeah. You see, for me, it's just happened recently too, that you probably noticed, I don't know, in my post, but I started to say we more often. And for me, and I think it's related to what you say, I feel more and more the impact working with others has. And so it's like, it's always what I say, your clients carry your mission, right? When when they get successful, you get successful, your mission gets successful. And also, we don't have to have huge teams, but I find that, and I know you have some people helping you too, and I do too, and it's very new for me, maybe the last 6 months. And you see the impact of also hiring other people, and the work you put out there in the world is impacting so many people so different ways that I noticed that I have naturally started to say we, because I know that what I do now is not just like, it's not just me in my office. It has an impact whether I want or not. So I just love that discussion, because we are we.
Yeah. And this book the reason that it felt so easy and the flow is because of the help that I allowed myself to receive.
Ooh, that's juicy.
Yeah, because I feel like that's part of it, right? Anywhere from, my husband's commitment to me writing this book, and my mother's knowing that I always had this book in me, and of course it was going to get written. And all the way to my team who helped me, and my publishing team that helped me. And like, it was just like, I was mostly like this aggregator of like, it was like quality control in a way. Is that what I'm really trying to say? And so when I look at what my clients are doing and getting promoted, like, that's what they want. They want to be the overseer of this whole process versus like in the muck. Right. And that's basically what I did, right? In order to create something quite so big, you have to have support. And so it was like, it like forced me to say yes to all of these things and do something bigger.
I love that we talk about that, to be open, to be helped, to receive help, because that's game changer in everything, right? Oh, wow.
Absolutely.
Okay. So promotions made easy. Tell me, when is the next book?
Well, okay. So you mentioned this, I think, at the beginning of this interview, which talking about this fear of visibility, right? And so I, in the final chapter, so Monday, 2 days ago, I recorded the audio book for my book. So that will be coming out in February. And you get to read it all over again. You get to read it out loud. You really get to see. And I was like, oh my gosh, chapter 11, the final chapter of the book, is my next book. And it basically talks about our power as women, and we're always striving to be more authentic, bring our whole self to work. And I have truly learned that the more that I step into my power and what I'm truly capable of doing, the more authentic I am. It's like my authenticity is being very powerful, right? And not covering up all the muck, like owning all of it. And so that's what I talk about in the last chapter of the book. And I'm like, yep, that's the beginning of my next book.
So tell me, I love that. Let's zoom in a little bit here before we go. Tell me an example. What does that mean to be more authentic?
Great. So, so here's an example. A big thing that I hear all the time is, we'll see what happens. So I have the conversation with my boss. I'm going to ask for a promotion and we'll see what happens. And I encourage my clients to want it. Right? So saying we'll see what happens is basically what I call failing ahead of time. You're giving yourself this sort of false security to think that you're going to feel better when you don't get it. If you say, well, we'll just see what happens. Like you actually think you might feel better. But we all know that when we get passed over for a promotion, we don't feel better. When our boss tells us no, we don't feel better just because we said, well, we'll see what happens. All we do is validate our, feeling that it wasn't ever going to happen anyway. And so what I say is want it. What if you wanted it? And so when I talk about a woman that says, hey, I am committed to growing in this company, and I'm willing to do what it takes to make that happen. Tell me, what I need to do to get promoted next month. That's wanting it, right? When she walks in there and says, I want this promotion and I'm ready to do what it takes. I'm ready to grow and I'm taking your advice. And you know what? And this is not what they would say out loud. This is internal talk. If it doesn't work out, I'm out of here. Like I'm going somewhere else where they want me, right? So that to me is so much more authentic than the person who's like, well, we'll just see what happens. Okay. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. See, authentic to yourself even.
Yeah, it's more about you.
Yeah.
Right? And the beauty of it is that when you're communicating in that way, you are that executive leader, right? See, my program's called Executive Ahead of Time. It's how do we communicate as that executive leader, which is incredibly powerful. And we are already that person. And when you see somebody and you think about it as the person that you love, somebody that your sister or a person that you think and you see them and you see their power and you know it and you're dying for them to show up and to say, I want it. I deserve this. I'm ready to go for it. You see that in them as the most authentic thing, right? You see all of the other stuff of like the we'll see what happens or I'm not sure or like, all of that. We're looking at
abdicating your power.
Something's off, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. And, and so a lot of my work is with like minority leaders, underrepresented leaders, people who don't look like the rest of the room. And I started to notice this word authenticity come up in my podcast interviews with them, where these really fantastic, phenomenal leaders of color, they would say things like, what was their secret to success? And they would always say authenticity. And I'm like, okay, well, what does that mean? Did you walk in like all vulnerable, crying and like, ooh? No, they were like, I didn't take shit from anybody. I showed up and told them what I wanted. And I said, this is how it's going to work. Right. And people started to listen. And I was like, yeah, that is authentic. That is true authenticity. So that's my next book.
I love it. Love it. Okay. So Tracy, Tracy, oh my God. Okay, you're going to change your name too. Tracy. It's probably because of Tracy, our Tracy.
Yes.
Okay. Now we're going to go very, very, not tactical, practical. What if I were a woman entrepreneur or anybody passionate about a topic, what would be your top 3 advice to someone who wants to dare to think to write a book?
So I build my confidence through taking action, right? So for me, I don't try and become more confident or get the confidence to write the book. I just like do stuff, right? So when I was a performer in New York City, I would book shows, I'd book deadlines, and I would just do it and get up there. And then I would find myself becoming more and more confident. And I think for writing a book, for me, it was about doing work. And so I personally thrive through speaking. And you mentioned how when you read the book, if you like how I'm speaking today, that's how the book reads. So I did most of the work of writing the book through talking, and through compiling work from my podcast and things like that. So that's one thing. If you can take action, and so if you assuming you have a business, you're an entrepreneur, you have clients, right? So how can you start recording and documenting the work that you're doing? And so you're double winning, right? Whether it's worksheets or video conversations and things like that. So you're recording this information, and that can start to write the book and start to help you feel more confident that you have a specific methodology and something to share in this book. Same goes for stories. When you start to share those stories and things which make for very good books, start to really actually share the story, see how it feels in your body. Was that a good story or not? Right. I mean, Angelique, you're creating all kinds of books here from this podcast, right? So it's how are we engaging? And then the second thing is that I found very, very interesting that I had no idea whatsoever is that there are ways. So when you apply to get a publisher, so my book is technically self-published. I hired a publishing house to publish it for me. And I had literally written the book. Like it wasn't that I didn't want a publisher. It's just that when I started to research publishers, I was told almost immediately, and I just had no idea, that your book cannot be written already if you have an actual publishing house. And so you have about a year so you get it through a proposal, and then you get the publisher, and then the publisher guides you to what the chapters are going to be about and how it's going to unfold.
No time for this.
I had no time
for this.
I was ready. And so what I would say is if you're not there yet, freaking get the publisher. So your listeners might have heard of Gabby Bernstein. She has this amazing class called, bestseller masterclass or something like that. It's so good. And she talks about how to get a publisher. And I was already past that. So if all you have is the inkling and the idea and the desire and you have a business and you feel like this could be good, like I could have been trying to get publishers for the last 10 years. I had no idea. I thought that when you got a publisher, you had to be like book in hand, right? No, it's actually just the opposite. So I was like sort of forced to self-publish because I wasn't waiting. And also I wanted ownership and control, which maybe many of your listeners, but even that, if you want to write it yourself, there's so many support people out there that help you and encourage you, and programs where you can write the book with them. And then there's also programs that tell you how to get a publisher. So just make the decision to write the book and start taking action, and you'll have one at the end of 2022.
Wow. Love it. Thank you for sharing this. And did you have a specific drink or something when you were writing, like a herbal tea or water? Like, what was your little routine around the actual thing?
No, I had Google Docs. That was my routine. So I had my Google folder, and I literally it did feel a lot like collecting, right? It was a lot less spiritual. I think maybe the spiritual and the ritualistic part of it happened, 10 years ago, where it's like, the trips to India and the visioning and all of that stuff working for me. But the act of this past 6 months to a year was kind of work. I'd sit down to my desk and I had the time blocked out in my calendar, and I moved around, I edited words, I focused, and then I got up and left. So I was done.
Yeah.
I did the work and
Yeah.
and I left.
So lesson learned or repeated, keep dreaming your dreams and don't worry about the how because it happens. Anyway, don't worry about the how it's going to happen because look at you. Like you were very clear on your dream 10 or 20 years ago and now this has happened and you had no idea 20 years ago that
I would be like a book about promotions. Like what? No. My book is going to be, about traveling through India and meeting these monks and all of these crazy things that happened to me. Maybe that'll be my third book.
Yeah.
So I already have my second book, but that'll be my third one.
One story at a time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stacy, thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
So the book is at stacymayer.com/book because I know on Instagram you don't see, but I can put that in the description after. But Stacy Mayer, that's stacymayer.com/book. Bam. Anything you want to add before we close?
So let me see. I did have some. I had something very, very profound. I'm sure.
Take your time.
Oh, I know what it was. So I was when a lot of things kind of came up for me on Monday when I was doing the audiobook. And I think it's because it does feel a little bit surreal to have this book already out there in the world and getting the feedback and the reviews and different things like that coming in. And I was listening to the audiobook and it wasn't 100%. It wasn't perfect. It was a perfect first book. And I had this realization that I could have spent a whole nother year editing it and still read the audiobook on Monday and had it not been perfect, right? Like, it's like you hear something, you're like, oh, I could have gone into more detail there. Oh, I could have explained that better. Or maybe it needed a story there or whatever. And as we're talking today, you heard us, we're talking about our second book, our third book. So your first book is only just the beginning. And you have so many more books to write for the rest of your life. So just get started and do it because it's not going to be perfect no matter what you do. And it's always going to be a first book no matter what you do. And for most authors, it's their fourth, fifth book that is the one that actually, explodes into whatever it wants to be. But this book is exploding into exactly what I need it to be right now. And I'm so thrilled and so happy.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And those earrings, oh my God.
Yes. And the fact that they came from my client who I share about in the book is so special. And it just makes me, the gratitude and everything that I feel is just overflowing. I really am. I'm so grateful. Yeah.
Magnifique. Thank you. And you inspire me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'm happy to gently nudge you over 2022.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Leave us a message. Thank you here on Instagram. Nitra, I am by Cham, and the Heather Doran. Hello.
Heather's in our Tracy group.
Yes, we have a bunch of people here. Thank you for being here. And if you have any question, I'll reach out to Stacy because she's amazing. Oh, I have comments here. Don't move. Ooh. Oh, okay. No, it's in Russian. Sorry, I can't read Russian. Oh, here we go, LinkedIn. I'm going to show you here. Jennifer.
Oh, hi, Jennifer. So Jennifer's the one who gave me the book, the earrings.
Oh my God, this is you. Oh my God, you're amazing, Jennifer. Those earrings are so cool.
Talk about an amazing woman. Jeez, even on the interview, I'm so grateful.
You have the perfect clients, Stacy.
You know what? I will take that. I take credit for that. I really do. Our amazing group of corporate badasses is pretty exceptional. It's amazing. Yeah, that's our we. That's why we're doing this work.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, ladies, for being here with us. And then keep in touch, okay?
Thank you.
Ciao. Bye-bye.
Bye.